cool.
But then it evaporated really quickly.
Yeah, it did. It was weird. I got a picture of it because it was funny. My mom texted me from the basement and she's like, it's snowing. I said, what? But of course it didn't really stick. It stayed for like 20 minutes, but it was still funny that,
So, you know.
yeah, nobody predicted it. So just there it was. Silly.
It's my birthday in 17 days.
Ooh, you're counting down 17 days. You know exactly how many.
He's turning 10.
Well, 10's big. That's important. Double digits, man.
He's getting one of those giant balloon things.
Giant balloon things. What's that?
Giant 10 balloons.
Oh.
I got one for my 10th birthday and we sucked all the helium out of it.
And then we get to like, oh, next time I throw my lunch.
My dad's voice on helium is hilarious.
I bet. Yeah, that's always funny.
The deeper your voice, the higher your voice is after.
We're dissecting flowers today.
We are. This is our first day of dissecting. And after that, we're going to be dissecting living things.
No, he said flatworms. That was not even close.
Flowers.
I said flowers, Darcy.
I liked this morning. Our Facebook page for our class shared this. Every single thing that exists in this infinite universe is either a duck or not a duck. Either a duck or not a duck.
We're not a duck.
Or not a duck. That made me laugh, so I had to share it because it's just goofy. I have all kinds of goofy things on our page.
There's a Steve Harvey one and it's really funny.
You have the clicker, Drew? Awesome, thank you. Can you turn the collar on? And then keep him in there for a bit. Thank you. Sorry, you were saying, Darcy? There's what?
There's a Steve Harvey one. It's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, give me something that comes after pork. And then he goes, and then this guy goes, coupon.
Coupon.
There was
Coupon is good. Pork coupon. I like that.
And he goes, it's up there, Steve.
See, I think I would have said and beans.
I probably would have said pork loin. Gross.
Tenderloin. Yeah. Chops.
Pork chops. I like pork chops.
I probably would have said and beans. Pork and beans. That makes sense to me.
There are so many.
Yep. All right, I don't see any notes from anybody saying they're not coming, aside from I know one set of people that aren't coming. Claire's online. When I know Claire's going to be online. I don't know.
Claire.
There's Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Thank you, baby. Yeah, grab your binder. So we got Claire online today. Don't know where Lily is. Don't know where Anthony is. Don't know where Sky is. Who else are we missing?
Us three.
Yeah.
Oh, two. So we're a team of two.
All right. Well, is anybody missing lesson 21 in their binder? Because I found it laying around. Anybody missing it? If you're not missing it, then it's not yours. So,
Nope.
okay. Well, I just found it laying around. So I was like, oh, something like that. Well, let's start our lesson. Then Drew's on his way back down. He just left this big old binder upstairs. He transitioned all of his stuff to one big binder. I guess it's easier for him to keep everything together. So, oh, here comes somebody. We'll wait for him to get in. Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? I hear a door.
Yeah.
Awesome. Got one more somebody coming. Who is it? Can we see? Oh, hello.
It's Lily.
It's Lily? Okay, good. This is Lily's. So I'll get this over here to Lily. Lil, I put your paper I owe you right here. Are you missing lesson 21? Somebody has left their whole lesson from their binder just sitting here last week. And Colson, your mom commented on the fact that I had the wrong number at the top of the lab, but we figured that out week before last when I screwed that up. So, all right. So today is our last lesson on plants. So what does that mean for your after class? There won't be homework, but there's a test. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, this test is a test you're gonna want to really study for. Okay, it's a lot of stuff.
I could do that.
All right. Okay, so plant reproduction and response. Let's see what we can learn today. Some of this stuff we've already talked about, so that's good. It shouldn't be unfamiliar to you. All right, so this is a review of your homework. So let's see. What was number one? What's this right here? You know?
I got 1 out of 10 because I didn't look at my book.
Well, here's your word bank at the bottom. Remember, I gave you a word bank for this.
It's a cuticle.
It's a cuticle. Good job. All right. That didn't quite clear out of there, but you'll see in a minute. How about number 2? It's here and it's here and it's here.
Phylum or xylem?
Phloem or xylem? Which one do you think it is?
It's xylem.
Xylem? It's xylem. Way to go. Excellent. Okay, number 3 is here, here, and here. So that's xylem. What's the other one? Phloem. Phloem. There you go. Very good. Okay, number 4 is right there and right there. Here's your word bank. Yeah, there you go. No, cortex. Sorry, wrong one. I thought that one was going to be. So this is number, what are we on? 5? That's this right here. What's that one? Do we know? That one is your vascular cambium or your cambium. So this is the one that's surrounding your phloem, right? All right. How about, what are we on? 7, 6. 6 is here. What is it? What is it? What is it? Epidermis. Lower and upper. Yes, that's your epidermis. And here is 7. What's that? What is it? What? It's a root hair. That's great. And how about number 8? Do we know what that is? That's a pericycle. That's that little cell, just in case. And how about number 9? What's 9 pointing to? This right here.
Looks a lot like that.
That's going to be your endodermis. And lastly, number 10. What is it? Pith. We got it. Okay, good. That's excellent. So there's that homework. Now, you are going to have a similar exercise on your test. I will tell you that it's not stems and roots. It's flowers. Okay. And we're going to do that in the middle of this lesson too. But you're going to need to be able to label all the parts of the flower. And that's the lab today too. So you should be really familiar with it.
Is the test going to be on tea trees?
Yes, test is on tea trees. So yeah, just it'll look like this sort of thing where you've got like blanks to fill in. But yours will be matching. Like you'll have a list of number 1 through 10 or whatever, and then over here you'll have all the different parts and you'll have to match it. Alrighty, so reproductive anatomy and flowering plants. This is the thing you're going to want to really pay attention to because this will be on your test, plus it's today's lab. So perfect. So structure of flowers. So flowers are the reproductive organs of plants, and they're composed of 4 different kinds of special leaves. Do we know what they are? Anybody know what kinds of leaves are in flowers or in leaves? Yeah. Petals are definitely, and sepals. You know where the sepal is? It's up. It's like the outside of the bud. We're going to get to that when we go through today. There's your petals, stamen, and carpels. Now, this word carpel was the one used in, I think the carpel was the one used in your book, but carpel and pistil are the same thing. You can use either word. It's interchangeable. So sepals and petals. So sepals are the outermost circle of floral parts. They're right here. And if you look at like a lily or something, sometimes if you look at like an Easter lily, the sepals almost look exactly like the petals. And sometimes that's true of flowers. When the flower's closed and it's a bud, sometimes that bud has a color, right? So that's when the sepals look more like petals. But the sepals are the outside layer and they open up and the petals are inside. And I think this right here is a Althea. Some people call it a Rose of Sharon. They're really pretty. And then this is what encloses the bud, right? Like I was just saying, it protects the flower while it's developing. And then you've got petals, and your petals are usually brightly colored. Why are petals brightly colored? Does anybody know why? What are they trying to do? What?
They're trying to protect themselves from predators, like trying to make them look like other poisonous flowers so they don't get eaten.
That could be. What else? Do you know?
To attract smaller animals like bees?
Yeah, it's mostly to attract
Pollinators.
pollinators. Yeah, bees. Have you ever looked? There's some of these on YouTube. I'll see if I can find one and add it to your weekly email. But bees don't see the way we see. They see kind of like almost like an infrared spectrum. And when they look at flowers, they look completely different. And it's almost like a bullseye, right, for the stamen. It's really kind of cool, right, for the nectar and the stamen. And that's where they go for it. So your colors, your number, and your shapes attract insects and other pollinators. What other pollinators are there besides bees?
There are.
What else
I'm
pollinate?
pretty sure hummingbirds. And
Yeah.
grasshoppers do that.
Hummingbirds, yeah, sometimes butterflies. These are all
Butterflies
pollinators.
terrify me. Have you seen their eyes?
Yes, their eyes are cool. So then you have stamen. Okay, so stamen are the male parts of the flower, and they are composed of a filament, which is this long stalk, and it's really thin. It looks kind of like this, right?
Don't touch it, it will turn yellow.
Yeah, and that's the anther at the top right here. Okay, so it's definitely true of lilies, not of every flower, but of lilies.
We have lily flowers at my house,
Mhm.
and Savannah had her show, so I brought her one.
Yeah.
And, like, it fell on my hair.
Yep.
So, and my hands.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah, they will. The pollen of lilies will really, it'll stain. Actually, I remember years ago, I was at a job and I had to deliver flowers to somebody for something that helped out for at work, and it was lilies. And I had on a light blue cotton t-shirt that really matched this particular skirt, and I bumped them up against me, and I got the pollen on the shirt. I spent days trying to figure out how to get it out because it matched the skirt. It was like the one thing that matched the skirt. Never got it out. I had to throw it away. Yeah.
Fun story. My mom has this pink sweatshirt, and every time she wears it, she spills something down. It's insane.
Jason has a pair of shorts like that. My husband has a pair of khaki shorts that if he wears them, he drops food on them.
I just told my mom to stop wearing them.
So the anthers are what contain the pollen, and your pollen are your male gametophyte, or that means they're your male sex cell. Okay, so they're like analogous to sperm in animals, right? Your pollen. And if you look at this picture here, you can see that this one's closed and this one's just starting to open. So when they open, they look like this, and all the pollen's on the outside, right? And they're very close to the female parts of the flower. So the carpels are what we all, yeah.
I remember watching a video about that.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the wind comes, like a lot of pollen falls
Oh,
off.
yeah.
And it either goes to the same flower or a different flower.
Or a different flower. That's right. So the carpels or the pistil, this is the female part of the flower, and so the male part consists of two parts. The male part is the stamen, and that is an anther and a filament. The carpels are the innermost part. They're in the very middle, and they contain the female gametophytes, which they call ovules, and those eventually become seeds once they're fertilized. So your carpels are made of three parts. You have your pistil, which is, it's the same, carpel and pistil are the same thing. So it's a single carpel, and sometimes you can have like a fused one. This is an example of a fused one. This is a hibiscus, where they have like more than one style and more than one stigma. So your style is the center, it's like a stalk that comes up in the center, and here it is in this picture. It's this long skinny part right here, okay? And you've also got your stigma. That's the thing at the top right there. That's a great picture of a stigma. Now, stigmas actually have a tiny hole in them that the pollen can fall into, and they're usually kind of sticky. So if the pollen touches them, they can stick to it. And that's great because that's what you want, right? And then each carpel has a broad base, which forms an ovary. So an example of the ovary is right here, okay? Right, oh, sorry, right here. This is the ovary. So this whole thing from top to bottom is the pistil or carpel, same word. This part's the style, this part's the stigma, and this guy at the bottom is called the ovary. Now the ovary is full of ovules. Here's an example right here of ovules. They're the little tiny guys, and they become seeds once they are fertilized. And you're gonna see all of this in lab today. It's gonna be cool. Oh, I forgot your hand lenses. I'm gonna have to get that.
Wait, so you're telling me that the female has a style?
Yeah, she's got style. The male part doesn't.
But the male doesn't.
Always. Females are the more
Yep.
stylish.
So how do these male gametophytes develop? How's pollen develop? Now this is a graphic picture of an electron microscope scan. So somebody took an electron microscope scan and then kind of colorized it, made it easier to see. But pollen under a microscope can look like all kinds of different things. Can be all kinds of crazy shapes. And you are going to look at your pollen today under a microscope. So the pollen grains develop inside the anthers, right? And then that anther breaks open and they'll come out. So first you have meiosis, which produces your 4 haploid spore cells. This is similar, right? This is how meiosis works. We've done this before. And each spore is going to undergo 1 mitotic division to produce 2 haploid nuclei of a single pollen grain. And 2 nuclei. So you've got a cell with 2 nuclei. We're not used to that, right? You've got 1 nucleus and another nucleus. Usually we have 1 nucleus, right? This guy has 2. So the 2 nuclei are surrounded by a thick wall that protects the male gametophyte. So how do the female gametophytes develop? Do you know what this is? Do you recognize this? This is a cross-section of okra. Do you like okra? Anybody like okra? I love fried okra. And the best fried okra I've ever had is at the, the Smith House in Dahlonega. It's that place where you go and they just put all the food on the table, like family style. They have the best fried okra. So if you want to try it, that's the best place to go, man.
You made me think of a soap opera called Emmerdale, and it's about this girl and all these other people in a village. And
she's a killer. No one
this
knows
girl
it.
named
She's
Nina
coming back
is a killer.
because her boyfriend is marrying
Wow.
her enemy. So it's on Valentine's
This
Day.
sounds like a soap opera.
It's really good.
There's like a murder, like a real assassin.
Wow.
And
So,
he killed like 6 people.
so your female gametophytes develop inside of the carpel of a flower, down inside the ovary, right? So the ovules, or the future seeds, are enveloped in this protective ovary, the future fruit. So listen to that. The ovary is the future fruit. So when you're eating an apple, you're eating the ovary of a flower, what used to be the ovary of a flower. And then you've got a single diploid cell, goes through meiosis, produces 4 haploid cells, 3 of which disintegrate, and then you have 1. So you don't have to worry about that too much. So this little video about bees in slow motion, because they're pollinators. This should be cool.
Now I don't want to eat an apple. Whoa! That's all.
Get a good look at these guys, because it's really cool.
I think they're just yellow because they're covered in pollen.
They are.
Constantly.
This is great footage. See the pollen on their legs?
Yeah,
They actually have little baskets on their legs to they're pollen baskets where they collect it. See? Look at that.
Oh wow, their legs are freaking big.
I actually have one on a microscope slide we can look at today too, a worker bee leg. You can see the little baskets and stuff. Whoop, my sound disappeared.
Got a blue butt.
Yeah. Look at how much pollen that guy had. You see that? She had big pollen. Yeah.
They kind of look like butterflies.
Yeah. My cousin actually keeps bees. She has a hive and gets honey all the time. And she, her son just shipped me yesterday. I bought from him. He made fire starters out of the leftover beeswax that they had. So he put beeswax and a couple other things together, put a wick in them because they make great fire starters. Are good for fire pits. So I bought some from him because he was making some and trying to sell them. Yeah, they do make candles. That's right. So this right here, this is what you need to know for your test. Okay, so it's going to look very similar. So 1 is pointing to 2 and 3. This would be 2 and this would be 3. So what's this piece called right here that has both this and this? Do you remember?
Anther?
A male?
This is an anther. That's correct.
Stamen.
That's a stamen, right? That's perfect. That is a stamen. So anther, you said, Darcy, is right here, and that's correct. What's this long, skinny little stalk that holds the anther called? Do you remember?
Filament.
Very good. That's the filament. That's perfect. Now over here, you've got the female part of the flower. Move this down so that you can see well. Okay. Get your female part of the flower, which is all the way from the top to the bottom in the center. This is all the female part. Now, if you remember, I said this had 2 names. Do you remember what it is? You can call it both, either one. So it's a carpel or a pistil. Yeah. I typically have used pistil in the past as for my vocabulary, but it can be either. So this is very, very similar to what's going to be on your test. Now, what composes this pistil or carpel? You've got this piece, and then this piece. So what's this one at the top? You know? Do you remember?
Style? No.
Style's going to be this one, number 6.
Stigma.
Stigma is going to be number 5. And that's at the tippy top, and that's sticky. Yes, what you got?
Those 2 are style.
Yep.
then ovary.
Perfect. Then ovary. That's right. Now, what's inside the ovary? What are these little guys? There will be seeds when they're fertilized, but before they're fertilized, they're called ovules. So if you can remember ovary, you can remember ovule. Now, you guys will have a word bank on your test, and it will have a word bank, and then it will be matching. So don't worry about like trying to learn to spell stuff or whatever. If you can recognize the term, you're good. The older group will not have a word bank or matching. They're going to know every bit of it. So yep. You guys will have matching. So you'll know what's what. So what's number 9 pointing to?
No,
Right here. What's this colorful thing?
petal.
That's a petal, right? And do you guys remember what this at the bottom is? This is what holds it
Stamen.
together. No, we did stamen. Holds it together as a bud. When it's a bud, and then it opens up. It starts with an S.
Stamen?
No, that one is sepal. Sepal. That's going to be sepal. So right here, if this was an apple blossom, this part right here, this ovary is what's going to turn into the apple eventually. All right, so I have a little video that shows how fertilization works. Let me move this up.
Hi, Anthony.
Yep, hi Anthony, he's there now. So this is how pollen grains germinate.
After pollen grains have landed on the stigma of the same plant species, they are stimulated by the sugary solution on the stigma and germinate to form pollen tubes.
Oh, it's moving. So slow.
The pollen tube secretes enzymes to digest the tissues of the style. It grows down the style and then into the ovary, carrying the male gamete towards the ovule. The tube grows through the micropyle and releases the male gamete into the ovule. Finally, the male gamete fuses with the female gamete, forming a zygote. This process is called fertilization.
Now, what's interesting about that is that those little male gametes, they actually grow a pollen tube. Like, you know, in animals, male gametes, they don't do much. They don't grow things. I mean, sperms swim to where they need to be, or they land where they need to be, or spores do the same thing. But pollen grains, when they land on that stigma, that sticky, sweet stuff on top, stimulates them to grow this tube. And that tube uses enzymes that dissolve a tunnel all the way through the style until they get down to the ovary and somehow find the ovule. And then that's your fertilization. Yeah.
What happened to the other 2 tubes?
Oh, they'll keep going. They just showed you one for the sake of the video. So fruits and seeds. What's this kind of fruit, you know? Oh, come on. You guys have had these, I'm sure. I hope you have. It's a pomegranate. Yeah. Whoops. Now, pomegranate is a messy fruit to eat because these little guys are the seeds are in these little juice pockets, and man, is it a mess. I've seen all these different videos about how to open and eat a pomegranate without getting it everywhere. I actually remember like in 7th or 8th grade, I was reading my social studies book and eating a pomegranate, and I splattered pomegranate juice all over the inside of the book. And every time I opened it up, I was like, there it is again, because it's just everywhere. My textbook.
My parents gave me one when I was 5.
Oh.
It's not a pretty seed.
Yeah, I bet. So the way I do them is, I actually saw Alton Brown, I think, was the one who did this, but I put it in water. I get a big bowl, and I peel it and open it underwater because the seeds will fall to the bottom, and all this pith in here is really light and kind of fluffy, and all the little membrane pieces, and those float. So you can scoop this stuff off the top, and then your seeds are in the bottom. I do it that way, but I saw somebody the other day who
Really
cut it in a certain way and opened it up and only lost a couple of the seeds. Anyway, so seed and development of fruit. What are these fruits?
Kiwis.
Kiwis.
That's allergic because he ate too much.
Do you know if kiwis?
He's not allergic anymore.
Do you know if kiwis will grow here in Georgia?
They won't.
They actually will.
No.
Surprisingly, I have a friend at church who has some kiwi vines like this, and they had so many kiwis this year that they brought a bag of them to church and handed it to Jason and was like, here's our leftovers. There were 30 kiwis in that bag. I gave half of them to our organist. 30, and that was their leftover kiwis. Apparently it is a super productive vine. So how do fruits form? As angiosperm seeds. You got to have angiosperms. Remember, angiosperms are your seeded flowering plants, because you're not going to get fruit on your non-vascular. You're not going to get fruit on your vascular, no seeds, and you're not going to get it on your gymnosperms. They just make those little seeds inside like cones, remember? So, and as angiosperm seeds mature, ovary walls thicken, and that's what forms a fruit that encloses the developing seeds. Once fertilization of an angiosperm is complete, nutrients flow into the flower tissue to support the development of the growing embryo. Hang on. We're back. I don't know what happened there, but we got it. Sorry about that, gang. Everybody got here? Can you hear? You're all good? Yeah, good. Okay. So your fruit is a matured angiosperm ovary, usually containing seeds. Yes.
One time in our neighborhood, there's this peach tree,
Ooh.
and one day we went there, we like passed it and we saw flowers on it.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
then a week later, we saw like these teeny peaches.
Yep. Yep. My grandparents had an apple tree and a plum tree in their yard. The plums never got too big, usually because the animals would get to them. But the apple tree grew all these little tiny green apples. They were supposed to be red apples, but it seemed like they stayed green. They were really sour, and my cousin and I used to eat them all the time. They were little, like this big. But we had this weird tradition where my grandfather would go pick a handful of those little tiny green apples. And as you were leaving their house and backing out of their driveway, he would throw them at the car. I don't know why, but he did it every time.
Oh,
And
I'm gonna get an apple tree.
It was funny because they were tiny and they would just bounce off the car, but he did it every time.
I'm gonna do that.
So why do you think flowers have evolved to create these fruit to hold the seeds? Like, why would that be? Drew, what do you think?
They're full of water, making them more heavy, so they might fall from the tree.
That's one. What do you think?
Because predators will get at them if they don't.
Okay, yeah. So there's a couple good reasons for a fruit. So part of it is about spreading the seeds, and part of it is about giving the seeds nutrients. So if a fruit falls to the ground from the tree and it has the seeds in it, that fruit is full of nutrients. So as it sort of decomposes and decays into the ground, it gives that seed the nutrients it needs to grow, which is really important. So fruits vary in their structure. You got all kinds of fruits, like compare a raspberry to a banana to,
I mean, they're very.
yeah. And we've done a lot with selective breeding and genetic engineering and that sort of thing to create fruit that look different. If you've ever seen what a wild banana looks like, it looks nothing like the bananas we eat today. Very, very different. So seed and fruit development, how do fruits form? Here's some different kinds of fruits here. We've got, let's see, these are peanuts. They grow under the ground. That's a legume.
Wow.
This is also a legume. What's this one?
Peas.
Peas. They're still in the pod. And these are grapes, right? And then apples. And they're all very different kinds of fruit. So the term fruit is going to apply to sweet things. That's what we think of, right? Like apples and strawberries. But foods such as peas, corn, rice, tomatoes, which we usually call vegetables, are actually fruit. Like tomatoes are fruit. And it's funny because we really do think of them as vegetables. Like we use them in sauce. We make spaghetti sauce and pizza sauce out of fruit when you think about it. Yeah, and you eat them with salad.
You eat them on hamburgers.
So the ovary wall surrounding the fruit can be fleshy like it is in grapes and tomatoes, or it can be tough and dry like the shell that surrounds peanuts. And peanuts themselves are the actual seeds.
Peanuts were nuts.
Well, peanuts are technically not nuts. They're a legume. They're in the same, peanuts are, no, they're not like potatoes. They're in the same family as green beans and peas. They're legumes because if you think about the way a pea or a green bean looks, it's got the pod and then the seeds inside, and that's a peanut. So peanuts and tree nuts are different. So people that are allergic to peanuts may not be allergic to tree nuts. They may be able to eat walnuts and almonds and things that grow on trees, but not peanuts. And sometimes people who are allergic to peanuts can't eat peas and green beans because it's the legume, something in the legume family genetic makeup that they're allergic to. Yeah, Ethan can't have peanuts.
Oh wow, I want
Walnuts.
Or walnuts, so he can't do peanuts or tree nuts.
Is that corn?
So this is corn that's been specially bred. It's called glass gem, I think.
Rainbow corn.
Yeah. So I actually saw some of this beautiful, like purple looking corn. It was gorgeous. It looked kind of like these colors. It was purple and white. And I saw it in one of the like Whole Foods. No, I think it was Super H Mart. one of the places that has all the weird kind of different stuff. I was like, I have to get this to taste it. And I brought it home and I cooked it, and it was like really kind of like the fleshy stuff inside the peanuts was really, peanuts, kernels of the corn was really starchy, and it was hard to chew. It wasn't soft like yellow corn or silver queen or whatever. It really kind of wasn't edible. I don't know how you're supposed to cook it right. Next time I'll have to find out because it didn't work. Yeah, so I steamed it like corn on the cob and cooked it, but maybe it needed to be something more like, yeah, I was thinking that, or cream corn. So I did save some, and I tried cooking it a second time. It still didn't go. I was like, I cooked this twice. So seeds contained in fleshy, nutritious fruits are usually dispersed by animals because we eat them, and then what happens? We poop them out somewhere. Now our poop's going down the toilet, so that's not helping the trees.
But really desperate on a 5-mile hike.
Yeah, dig a cat hole in the woods. So here's the deal. If you're not a human, you're going to poop outside, and those seeds are going to get dispersed. And what are they dispersed in? Poop. And what is poop? It's a great fertilizer. So again, you've done, if a dog or a squirrel
does their business.
Yes, these chipmunks that live under our patio down there, and they come out over here in the summer. My raspberries grow, and they're crazy. Come on, internet connection. We get so many raspberries, they grow for months. Like they ripen slowly over the entire summer and into the fall. And those little chipmunks will crawl up there and stuff them in their little faces. But at some point they're going to poop, and those seeds are going to be moved from wherever they started.
Imagine if chipmunk poop was just like the size of a small dog's poop, and it looked like dog poop. Like, I don't want a chipmunk anymore.
It looks more like rat or mouse poop. So seeds actually, I have a friend who used to she still does. She keeps rabbits. She has pet rabbits, but she calls them house rabbits because she just lets them out and they just hop around. It's like a dog, but they're hopping around the house. And they poop everywhere. Rabbits just poop. But rabbits make those little tiny round pellets that you can just pick up with a paper towel. Like they're never wet. They're very dry. And she would call them bunny seeds. She's like, oh, bunny seeds. And she just pick them up, keep going. It was kind of great. So seed dispersal by wind or water are typically contained in lightweight fruits. So the seeds that go by wind and water are usually lightweight, and that allows them to be carried on the air or in buoyant fruits that allow them to float on the surface of the water. So then you've got, so here's your seed dispersal by animals. Now look closely at this little dog here. This dog is dispersing seeds, and it's not by eating them and pooping them out. What's happening? They're stuck. Can you think of any seeds that do that? You ever had seeds stuck to you? I bet you have. You ever had burrs get on your clothes? Yeah. Now some burrs are like these, where they're kind of dark and dry looking, and they're really spiny and prickly. And then there's some that are like Velcro. There are these little ones that grow here, and they're little, round, and they're green, and they're like Velcro. And if you walk through those weeds, they're on you. If your dog goes through, they're on your dog. Yeah. Yeah. So if you do that, if you have one of those guys, think about it. Those are getting spread, and that's the whole point. So they can sprout in feces, like we said, eliminated by animals, or they, and these fruits provide nutrition for the animal, and it helps the plant disperse the seeds, often to areas where less competition with the parent plants. So if those raspberries out there, if I don't eat them, I don't pick them, they fall to the ground and they grow there, they're still competing with their parent plant, right? They're competing for space and light, and nutrients in the soil. But if my chipmunks carry them somewhere else and poop them out, and those raspberries start growing over there, they don't have that competition, which is great.
Unless they pull them into a bigger group. Oh no, that's to be more.
So animals may disperse many dry fruits, but not necessarily by eating them. Sometimes they have burrs or hooks that catch an animal's fur, enabling them to be carried many miles from the parent plant. So if it's an animal that moves around a lot, many, many miles. Now the deer around here, we have a lot of deer. Actually, I nearly killed one last Thursday. It was terrifying. There's a certain curve on Southern Circle where the deer like to cross, and I always look for them because I expect them. And I was going to choir, and it was getting dark out. I was going to choir Thursday night, and I saw this buck on the side of the road. Now, usually those deer will just stand there on the side of the road. Like you can drive right past and put your window down, look at them and say hi, and they just stare back at you. And they're like from me to Lily because they're used to it. They're really close. But this guy started to walk into the road, and he was a big buck. So I started to slow down, and then he did the stereotypical deer in the headlights and went and stared. And I was like, oh no. And I had to lock my brakes. And I was like, well, the analog brakes work, but everything in my van that was loose came flying to the front of the van, up under my pedals. I had to like go over to the side of the road and get my phone out from under my pedals because my phone was sitting on the console beside me. Yeah.
We used to know this dog. He used to be friends with my dog.
Yeah.
So he's killed a deer before, like a baby deer. And he's like got a kid before. This dog was like
Not a good
vicious.
dog.
He got hold of a giant deer. She tells me because every Tuesday she goes with one of my dog's friends. Anyway, so it got hold of this deer by its throat and it killed it.
That's a crazy dog.
And
What kind of dog is this?
Like, it's a golden retriever.
Whoa, they're usually really docile. That's funny.
It's not this big furry golden retriever. I think it's a mutt. It's just
Yeah, those are usually pretty docile dogs. So anyway, those deer that live around here, they get burrs if they hop into my yard because they jump right over my fence like it's nothing, and they eat whatever and they move seeds that way, and then they get those burrs, those weeds stuck to them, and they take them places. Do you know I learned a couple years ago that, we were looking for ways to keep the deer away because they were eating all of our plants. And my mother was like, I just planted that. We'd come out in the morning, there'd be little stems left at the bottom of the ground. They don't like Irish Spring soap specifically, which is really weird. But if you get Irish Spring soap and put it in a bag and hang them around, they won't come in. That, and I also heard that if you run monofilament, which is like fishing line, and if you run that like right above your fence line, if they jump and touch it because they can't see it, they won't jump there again because it freaks them out. But Irish Spring worked. So seed dispersal by wind. Oh, everybody knows what these are. What do you usually call these? Well, these are from a maple tree, but I think
maple tree in our yard.
yeah. What do you call these?
Sycamores.
Well, I call these helicopters. Everybody call them helicopters. They fall like this. They spin as they fall.
Then we collect them.
Those things grow in spring. I forgot the name of them. Isn't it something
But
like
Anthony,
petal?
hang on, Anthony said something. What'd you say, Anthony?
Isn't it like a petal?
No, these
It's
are
some type of petal that
like-
grows in spring.
yeah, it looks like a petal, but these are actually they're actually for carrying the seeds. The seed is right here, and then this piece right.
Wait, are those honeysuckles?
Nope, this is a maple tree. And these are the seeds on a maple tree. And when they fall in the wind, they spin, spin, spin. They're really cool. And this is what? You guys know
I
what
forgot.
That's
dandelion. If you look closely, the seeds are right here at the bottom. See them? And then these little guys are the ones that float. Now, milkweed has bigger ones. They're bigger and they float. When I was little, we would call them fairies and we would chase them around because they float through the wind. So seeds dispersed through wind are typically contained in lightweight fruits that allow them to be carried on air. So these guys float through the air. So when you blow a dandelion, you're blowing the seeds everywhere. It's really fun to blow them, but you're just like filling your yard with weeds. And so a dandelion, for example, is attached to a dry fruit. That's the seed right here, this little guy right here at the bottom. And has a parachute-like structure allowing the seed to glide considerable distances away from the parent plant. Now, how about dispersed by water? Do you know what this is? Anybody know what this is?
That is a conch shell.
It's not a conch shell.
It's a tree pod.
It's cool.
It's a coconut.
Oh.
This is the outer part of a coconut. You've probably seen the little brown, like furry looking part.
Yeah.
That's inside. But on the outside of a coconut, before it's opened, it looks like this. And it's very lightweight, right? And it's coconut's hollow in the middle, right? It has coconut milk in it, but then it's hollow. So if a palm trees tend to grow near beaches, right? Near water. So if a palm tree coconut falls and it lands in the water, or the water comes up and takes it away, like a wave takes it away, it will float like this and it lands on a beach and sprouts. This is a new palm tree growing out of a coconut. It is really cool. Yeah. So some seeds like the coconut are dispersed by water. Coconut fruits are buoyant enough to float in seawater for many weeks, enabling the seeds to reach and colonize even remote islands. So this is why there's palm trees everywhere from one island to the next island. It's not like those palm trees are going to be able to, drop a seed on the ground and then have it grow on another island. That doesn't work. It's because they float. So then you've got cotyledons. You see this word? This is cotyledon, okay? And they're part of the seed. And there are two types, okay? Cotyledons are flowering plants' first leaves, and they don't really look like leaves, but they are. They store nutrients and then transfer them into the growing embryo as the seed germinates. So what's this? Do you know what this is? You've probably eaten it before. It's a lima bean. And then you know what this is, right? It's a corn kernel, right?
That's a lima bean?
It's a lima bean, little tiny one.
It's so bright.
Yeah, it's a pretty one, isn't it? So monocots, mono means what? One. Very good. Have a single cotyledon that usually remains underground while it passes nutrients to the young plant. This is a monocot. And then you have growing monocot shoots emerge from the soil, and they're usually protected by a sheath. Then you have these guys, dicots, okay? There are two parts to this. If you take a lima bean and you rub it in your fingers, you can split it in half, right? You can do the same thing with a peanut. You can do the same thing with a green bean or a kidney bean. You ever notice that? Or a pea? It's got two parts. That's a dicot. So instead, the upper end of the shoot bends to form a hook that forces its way through the soil. And those little cotyledons will come up with the leaves at the top. And monocots and dicots can be told apart, and I'll show you in a little bit, but you can tell what's a monocot and what's a dicot without looking at the seeds. There are certain characteristics. So real quick, let's go through plant hormones. Plants have hormones. Did you know that? Yeah. So these are chemicals that contribute to the plant doing what it does. So hormones are, this is a good definition. Hormones are chemical signals produced by living organisms. That's all living organisms that affect growth, activity, and development of cells and tissues within them. So plant hormones serve as signals that control development of cells, tissues, and organs. They also coordinate responses to the environment, and the opposing effects of plant hormones contribute to the balance necessary for homeostasis. That means it's got a balance, right? And they coordinate responses to the environment. Plant hormones may act on the same cells they're made in, or they can travel to different cells. So what role does hormones play? Hormone-producing cells in mature flower release hormones that travel into the bud and inhibit development, like don't open yet. Once the mature flower is done blooming, the production of the inhibition hormone declines, so then the flower can begin to bloom. We got to watch time. So auxins, there's two of these hormones that I want you to really know. Auxins is one of them. Here's why auxins are important. So here's our buddy Darwin again. Darwin and his son Francis explored the mechanism behind grass seedlings' tendency to bend toward the light. Have you ever seen a plant bend toward the light, like a house plant? Yeah, or even outside, a plant will bend toward the light. How does it do that? It does that using auxins. So the results of Darwin's experiment suggested that the tip of the seedling somehow senses light. And he hypothesized that the tip produces a substance somehow that regulates cell growth. And he was actually right. So this is the part I want you to understand about auxins. So pay attention to this because it might be on your test. So auxins and cell elongation. This right here is how it works. All right, I'm a grass seedling, right? Here's my little arm. I'm a grass seedling. The light is coming at me this way, okay? So what happens is the plant senses the light on this side, and auxins, which are these particular hormones, tell these cells on this side to grow longer. So when they grow longer, they force the plant to bend towards the light. And that's how it works. So one effect of auxins is cell elongation, right? And when light hits one side of the shoot, auxins collect in the shaded side, the other side. The change in concentration stimulates cells on the darker side to lengthen, which causes the shoot to bend away from the shaded side toward the light. So auxins are responsible for bending toward the light. Auxins and branching real quick. They also regulate cell division in meristems. Meristems are the end part of a shoot. It's the part that's the growing part. Growth at lateral buds is inhibited by auxins. That's these little guys here, these little lateral buds. They're the here, ding, 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 ding. So auxins move out of the apical meristem and closer to a bud, the stem's tip. This stuff is just extra. I don't expect you guys to know this too much. Lateral buds near the apex grow more slowly than those near the base. That's called apical dominance. And if you snip a plant The lateral buds begin to grow more quickly and the plant becomes bushier. So like right here, if you take this plant and you snip the top of it off, this is the growing part, it's going to cause the bottom to spread out. So if you want your plant to spread, you cut the top off, right? So this is because the apical meristem is the source of growing and inhibiting auxins, and you've eliminated it. Cytokinins really quickly. So cytokinins are plant hormones that are produced in growing roots and developing fruits and seeds. They delay aging of leaves and stuff. So they're the ones that keep your leaves green until they don't need to be green. So they produce, often produce the opposite effect of auxins. So auxins stimulate initiation of new roots and they inhibit the inhibition and growth of new shoot tips, and cytokinins do the opposite. If a tree is cut down, the stump will make new shoots, right? That's because cytokinins are going to accumulate near the cut and the auxins are going to move away. Okay, this is a fun one. Yep, gibberellins. So these guys stimulate growth and influence various developmental processes. They promote germination of plants, can cause dramatic increases in size, particularly in stems and fruit. And they're found in meristems. Remember, those little growing parts of shoots, roots, seeds, and embryos. Abscisic acid, which I got to move you guys now. This one interacts with gibberellins, and this is the one that kind of does the opposite of gibberellins. So you got cytokinins and auxins kind of opposite each other, and then abscisic acid and gibberellins, right? So these guys, he's going to inhibit all the things that we were just saying gibberellins did. The other one I want you guys to really know is this ethylene. Okay, this is the other one to know. You guys, I'm expecting you to know auxins and ethylene. So ethylene, anybody ever tell you if your fruit's not ripe, put it next to a ripe fruit and it'll ripen faster? Or you can take fruit that's not ripe and put it in a paper bag and it'll ripen faster. And that's because of ethylene. So fruit tissues release small amounts of auxin, and that helps them ripen and actually helps them decay too. It helps them go from this to this. It helps them go from the green banana to the yellow banana. It's what tells your fruit to ripen. So if you take like a green unripened apple and put it in a paper bag, you're going to keep the auxins. They're not going to go away. Like, I mean, ethylene, sorry. The ethylene almost like it comes to the surface of the plant, but it kind of can get out in the atmosphere around it. So if you put it in a paper bag, you're kind of isolating it to that fruit, and that fruit will ripen faster. Or if you put an unripe fruit next to a ripe fruit, it'll suck up some of the auxins from fruit next to it, and that'll help it ripen. So it causes the plant to seal off and drop organs that are no longer needed. So petals after flowers pollinated, leaves in autumn. And ethylene signals cells at the base of the structure to seal off from the rest of the plant by depositing waterproof materials in their walls. So we talked about tropisms last week a little bit during lab. Do you remember? So tropisms are plant responses to stimuli, and you have to know these two. Okay, I want you to know these two. They're phototropism, geotropism, thermotropism, hydrotropism, chemotropism, and thigmotropism. So these are how plants move. So phototropism is light, geotropism is gravity. That's what your lab last week was, right? Thermotropism is temperature, hydrotropism is water, chemotropism is obviously going to be, this one should say chemo, but it says chromo over here. That's a different one. Chemicals, and then lastly, touch is thigmotropism. So plants have sensors that detect the direction of stimuli and signal elongating organs to orient their growth toward or away from these stimuli. And these growth responses are called tropisms. So this is how plants actually move. So your phototropism is the one where we get our auxins causing our plant to lean towards the light. This plant is growing right towards this window, right? And it's doing that because it needs photosynthesis to live and it needs more light. So it's going to go that way. And that response is called phototropism. And it's all, like I said, due to changes in where the auxins are, and the auxins elongating the cells. So experiments have shown that auxins migrate towards shaded tissue. That's what we were saying. And due to membrane changes and permeability and all this other business. So gravitropism or geotropism, this is what you're doing with the roots in your lab. So this is actually a forest in, where's this forest?
Oh, wow.
I think it's in Belgium. I think it's a Belgian forest. So the way this worked is you can see that all these trees at one point were bent. Actually, I think it was like a storm or something that came through and it knocked them all down. And then they grew back up. And which way are they growing? The tree is growing up, right? But the roots are always going to grow down. And this is also controlled by auxins. Yep. Look at this one. Somebody bent this, or somehow it got bent, and it went straight back up.
This is a really curvy tree.
Mhm.
So cool.
Yeah. So horizontal roots, however, the migration causes roots to bend downward. So that's your lab we're doing. Yes, Claire. Oop, I can't hear you, babe. Are you muted? No, hang on. No, I can't hear you. You can type it and I'll look for it because I can't hear you. So thermotropism, this would be obviously temperature. This is how plant responds to temperature. So a common example is this rhododendron, which you see a lot around here. And it's, see its little leaves, they curl up when it's cold. Open the chat because she is saying something. I don't know what. Put it over here. And then we have hydrotropism. And this is how a plant finds the water for its roots. Its roots will grow towards the water. Do you know what kind of tree this is here?
Mango.
Close, mangrove. Yep. And see, these will grow, their roots will go right down into the water. And these trees down here, if you look at these, something weird happened, like the ground eroded, but they're still going towards the water, right?
Now it looks like it's crawling.
Yeah. So hydrotropism is usually how roots get to water. Now, chemotropism, because she says there's a park that is full of trees that twist into funny shapes. Ooh, you'll have to tell me where that is. I want to go look.
It's Hawk Creek.
Oh, yeah? Hall Creek has some, yeah, I've been over to Hall Creek. So chemotropism, chemo obviously is chemicals. All right. So we're running a few minutes late, so we're trying to get through here. So the growth of a plant part due to chemical stimulus is chemotropism. So roots will grow towards the most nutritious part of the soil. If they find, a plant finds that a certain part of the soil has more nutrients in it, the roots will go that direction. So, and it's also what happens when the growth of pollen tubes grow towards the ovule. Something, remember I said that sticky stuff at the top of the stigma, that tells the pollen grains to grow the pollen tube. That's a chemotropism. Lastly is thigmotropism. Great example of thigmotropism is a vine wrapping around something. If you see vines climbing plants, they do this, it's thigmotropism. Something on this side of the vine as it goes tells it to keep growing and stick to stuff. And another good example, I think there's a picture, there it is. Another good example is Venus flytrap. Oh, thanks, she gave me a link. So Venus flytrap, you know what happens there? It'll snap down and eat its bug. Yep. And that's a thigmotropism. And a mimosa plant, if you ever see mimosas, people, I think they're beautiful, but they're kind of like weeds. They go everywhere around here. They have these little frondy things. And if you touch them, their leaves will close up, and it's very fast, just like a Venus flytrap, very fast. Lastly is this one. We're gonna watch this real quick because we're running over and I don't want to get too late. This is a quick video though.
Types of tropism in plants. The term tropism refers to a plant biological ability to move by itself in response to various forms of external stimuli. Types of tropism in plants. Phototropism, geotropism, hydrotropism, thigmotropism, and chemotropism. Phototropism. The movements shown by plants with respect to stimuli of light is called phototropism.
And that's a little dicotyledon, to the little two leaves at the top.
Positively phototropic, and so it grows in the direction of light.
Oh, that's pretty.
Isn't that cool? I love these time-lapse videos.
I've never seen these time-lapse videos. How come we never see any darkness?
Positive phototropism, but negative geotropism. Geotropism. The movement shown by plants with respect to stimuli of gravity is called geotropism.
Or
Roots
gravitropism,
are
same thing.
positively geotropic.
That is a cool video. That's a root growing, looks like a worm.
Positive geotropism, positive hydrotropism.
Yep.
Hydrotropism. The movement shown by plants with respect to stimuli of water is called hydrotropism. Pigmentrophism. The movements shown by plants with respect to stimuli of touch is called pigmentrophism.
This is cool. Look at that. Look how it's moving around till it finds what it needs to grow up. And look at that. Look at that is a really cool time lapse. Yeah, it's a great, this time lapse is amazing. Looking for something to wrap around and then it finds it.
Well, that's one.
Some plants wrap around each other.
Yeah, they do.
Just like I weigh you down.
Look at that. That is cool.
Chemotrophism. The movements shown by plants with respect to stimuli of chemicals is called chemotrophism.
Here's your little pollen tube.
Nastic movement.
That's the
Nastic
mimosa.
movement
When you
are
touch it, this is what it does.
Responses to stimuli.
And that's
It
quick.
is not
It's very
like
quick.
trophism.
Isn't that crazy? That cell's quickly elongating due to a hormone. That's how fast it
Section
happens.
of plant or Mimosa pudica
Oh, I
is
wanna
a
see
herb.
that.
Isn't that cool? You can do that. Wait till
Lymph
spring. You'll see them. They're the ones with the little pink fluffy flowers. They look like puff balls.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Photonastic movement. Photonastic movement refers to the movement in response to light.
This is how sunflowers will turn with the sun. So that's a great slow-mo stuff. So really quick, lastly, plants and humans, we're just gonna run through this. This won't be on your test. This is kind of obvious stuff. So it's a food supply, right? And worldwide, most people depend on a few crops. It's rice, wheat, soybeans, and corn. That's the stuff we use the most. And scholars can trace the beginnings of human civilization and cultivation to the crop of plants. And once discovered how to grow plants for food, the planting and harvesting of crops tended to keep them in one place, which is how we got social institutions. 80% of all US cropland is used to grow just 4 crops: wheat, corn, soybeans, and hay. And of these 3, wheat, corn, and hay are all derived from grasses. So agriculture, obviously we grow plants differently. This right here, okay? This is what we call teosinte, or teosinte, I think it is. That is a wild grass that Native Americans did selective breeding with before they really even knew what scientifically selective breeding was. They knew how to do it. And they bred it into corn. This is corn before corn is corn, how we know it today, right? This is how it started, right? And let's see. In more recent times, other familiar crops have been the product of selective breeding. So all these different kinds of beets that are really pretty, certain types of blueberries. This is a great example. These are Brussels sprouts. Okay, when my mom was growing up, she hated them and her dad loved them. So her mom cooked them all the time. Brussels sprouts have been bred over the last couple of decades to be less bitter. And that's why they're suddenly so popular, because people will eat them now because they don't taste like they used to taste. They're better. I like them. So changes in agriculture real quick. So we've got machines now, we've got fertilizers now that people didn't used to have. And the problem is, if you're not careful with your fertilizers, they can run off into the water like this, and then it causes like algae to bloom, and it can be really bad.
Okay.
And yeah, pesticides can harm the fish and whatever. Fiber, wood, and medicine. So we use certain plants as medicines. Aloe vera. A lot of people just have one in their kitchen in case you burn yourself. You can put it on. Or sorry we missed you, but I'm putting this up real quick. Here's your test topics to study. And whoop, come on, share screen. Here's your test topics to study, and then we'll be good. Okay, so this is what you need to study for your exam, for your test, your Unit 6 test. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that up for a little bit. Yes.
Can you post that on
Yep.
the Wix website?
Yep, it'll be in your weekly email, and it's also in your Dropbox already. It's already in your Dropbox.
So I'm not even gonna
Yep,
follow
so you can
that.
look for it. Okay, so we're gonna end for these guys here. Sorry, y'all, but we'll catch you later. Bye, y'all. We're running late.
Bye.